Okay, so I'll start with the presentation. Uh, Great. Hi, Meghna, please go on mute. So, robotic process automation so. First of all, first let me introduce myself. I am Priyabrata Dash. I'm actually working for IBM, and I myself also was introduced to robotic process automation recently, and thought I'll be sharing my insights of what I learned from a 3 to 4 day webinar, workshop on robotic process automation. And hence, I would be sharing my insights of whatever I understood from there. So the agenda would be I'll be talking about what is RPA, why you should be looking at RPA, what RPA can do, the key benefits of robotic process automation, what the different types of tools that are available on in the robotic process automation landscape. If you are an enterprise or an individual, how can you explore RPA? And then also, I would be talking about 3 to 4 key tools that are available right now in for robotic process automation. For example, UiPath, Blue Prism. Then I'll be also giving a bit of idea about Automation Anywhere and WinAuto. And then if we have any kind of question or answer, we will be taking it up. So first of all, I'll be talking about introduction to robotic process automation. So basically, we all know that robots are meant to be doing are kind of a specific kind of a mechanism or kind of a program, or can be anything that when is taught a specific set of steps, structured steps, it would be executing it. So we all know that robots are quite popular as far as industrial automation is concerned, and the same thing is also being implemented gradually into the software side of things. So when we are talking about robotic process automation, especially, we are talking about certain software robots who are taught certain specific set of steps which is pertaining to a specific process. And these are certain structural steps which these particular robots would be doing either through a human monitoring, that is through the supervision, or they can operate in an unsupervised model. And the key terms that you would be coming across whenever you are talking about RPA tools, one would be the process automation. If you have certain set of structured processes, you would be looking at automating those. Then you would be coming across business process automation, and as well as robotic process automation. Then you have IT support and management. So if anywhere there is an operational activity or support activities involved, where the need for automation is much more, there you would be hearing a lot about RPAs. And another is automated assistant. So in case where you have less number of people but more number of resources or process to be maintained, and you need degree of automation there to augment for real people and to operate multi interaction between multiple systems, that time also you would come across RPA. Now, the key definition of RPA as far as key definition about robots as far as RPA is concerned, these are computer coded software. They enable the automation of repeated rule-based processes. They mimic interaction of users. This is very key. You have to understand that RPAs are typically there can be a lot of kinds of automation you can do. You can do script-based automation. You can do DevOps-based automation. But the most common way of RPA that we understand is where these kind of robots can mimic the human interaction. If there are any GUI-based interactions that we are doing on a repetitive or a regular basis, that is what can be automated using RPA. and another is that it would work across different functions and different applications. A very good example would be UI automation. So we already know there are a lot of UI Hi, guys, can you hear me? So, where did you stop? No issues, no issues. So, where did I stop? I was talking about the capabilities of process robots. Okay, fine. So, is it all right? I'll try to talk again. Guys, please mute yourself and just only message work through group chat, because if you stop it, I would have problems. No problem. I'll just restart again. Uh, so, uh, uh, the one of the key aspect about the key terminologies that you would come across robotic process automations, or as I told, that robots are the best suited, or the so-called process robots that we are talking about are best suited when you are doing automated data entry, or you have multi-system interaction, and the process is repetitive, and also you need some kind of process reconciliation. At that kind of tasks, your RPAs are very helpful. And these tasks should be not like once in a blue moon, but they have to be repetitive in nature. Like, for example, every hour or every half an hour, or twice or thrice a day. At least these kinds of tasks, if you have, and which are structured in nature. For example, you are filling some forms, or you are downloading some report and you are reconciling it for some kind of values, or which are definite values, or you are doing some kind of data validation against certain set of rules. So those kind of things are best suited for RPA tools. So, and you have to understand that RPA tool is not augmenting your system itself per se. You have some kind of a system, or you have some kind of a scheduler or you have some kind of an application, it may not be replacing that. It is actually replacing a user. So if a user who is part of a support team, or he's part of an operational team, and he wants to you want to automate that particular process, that what he's doing those interaction in a desktop, or what he is doing in a daily work, which is in a structured manner, which has a kind which is captured in case of a process manual, or which is captured in case of a run book. Those kinds of process, if you want to automate using RPA, makes sense. And you have to understand that these particular processes are basically designed. Each of these RPA tools that are available in the market, they have a concept of a RPA designer, where you define these processes, and then these processes, once you define, you have tested them on your designer, then you just push it to these kinds of robots. Robots are nothing but some kind of a daemons that are running on daemons or background processes that are running on these desktops or servers, which would basically run your repetitive tasks using the process that you have defined. Now, in these kinds of servers which we are talking, if you are doing GUI based automation, then they need to have access to GUIs. And most of these RPA, robotic process automation tools, 99% of it are Windows based, because most of these automation tools were developed as an advanced form of the UI automation tool, where user interactions were involved, where dynamic user in systematic user interactions were involved. These tools were as a way of automating those systematic user interactions. And when we extrapolated it to be used in a process oriented manner, that's when the RPA system was born. And one of the some of the earliest tools of RPA are Automation Anywhere and Blue Prism. Okay, so why robotic process automation? That's a million dollar question. So when we started in the earliest part of the automation journey, most of us would have done macros, Excel macros, or we have developed certain batch or Perl scripts to automate some of these tasks. The problem is that it doesn't. So advantage is that it doesn't require significant participation from the overall IT hierarchy. You are part of a support team. You have certain steps to be done, and you know that it can be automated by writing a script or macro. You just write it and run it. But the problem of it is that you are creating silos. That is, your script is non-standard. You have developed something in Perl. Somebody is creating something in bash script, somebody is creating something in VB script. But the problem is there is no standardization. And what happens is that these particular steps that you are doing, they even the management may not know that these kind of steps are there, or the IT hierarchy may not know that certain automations are available, and these automations may have certain reusable steps. But since you have developed your scripts, they are non-standard. Hence, these particular steps cannot be probably reused across departments or across processes. This is one of the biggest challenges that happens with basic process automation. But after this is the concept of enhanced process automation. Enhanced process automation is where your tools like RPA tools like UiPath or something like Blue Prism or Automation Anywhere comes into picture, where you define the process using these tools, and then what happens is that these particular whatever process you have done, you can then publish it to a much more RPA server, and these RPA servers would in turn manage certain set of robots which are running on different servers. And then these processes can be published or could be sent to a certain set of robots to be executed on those servers. And these processes that you have defined can be certain set of steps that needs to be done. So with the enhanced process automation, what you are doing, you are not only actually capturing one process for one person, but you are actually scaling also based on requirement of running certain set of steps. You want at one given point of time only one robot to run. but then you have a requirement that the same step, because of a load in your demand, you want to run the steps by 5 people. So instead of recruiting 5 people, you can run 5 robots who does these steps to increase the processing speed. An example would be processing of invoice. So processing an invoice, if you have this, doesn't in case of somebody like Amazon, in case of Amazon, in the off seasons, the processing of invoice may be lesser, but when on season happens, the processing of invoice increases. So if there is a manual process, they would have to recruit more people to process these invoices if they don't have an automated process. So if they have something like a kind of a robot, process robot, what they can do is that if they're during off season, they do not need to recruit high people. They just run 1 or 2 robots, and when there is more demand for faster processing, because there is already a lot of load in the system because of pending invoices, they can actually spin off more robots to do the whole invoice process, and they can just push this particular processing, the logic that they have developed in the designer, to this particular robots to be executed. This is one architecture. There are multiple architectures where you can define multiple which part of a complicated business process which particular robot can do. So that also makes or which set of robots can do. So this actually helps you in not only scaling up, but also on organizing a huge army of processes that can be automated. Now, the thing is that more and more enterprises are now moving from for low level operational tasks. Instead of people doing that, the enterprises are moving at finding more cost effective solutions, and that's why they are going for bots. And hence even startups are now going for implementing these kinds of process bots, or using RPA tools, so that they can automate some of these structured processes for which they have been recruiting in high numbers earlier. Now just they need to spawn off certain robots to do this task, and they would need much lesser workforce to monitor these robots than actually doing these processes, which are boring and also may not be and are very what you call time consuming if done manually. Another aspect about process automation, why you should be doing, is because it actually decreases human errors because of human intervention. A lot of processes where what happens is that because of you have a space or you have done some kind of a change in the scale, let's say your mood is bad and you have not done one of these steps and you have missed out. So that would later on in the process, it would become a much more costly mistake, and the mistake, as much as it trickles down during the process pipeline, that much expensive it is to fix that process. Hence, it is always advisable to automate it. And if you want to do it in a dynamic manner, that is, these processes that they need to be changed dynamically based on requirement on a periodic basis, you can always opt for robotic process automation. Now, the next wave of automation that we are looking at is cognitive automation. Cognitive automation would have a feedback loop. So unlike RPAs, where we are defining certain set of steps to be executed one after another, in case of cognitive process automation, they will learn from their mistakes and they will try to fix it. And they would be much more interactive with also the end user, either using chatbots or through using something like voice assistants, through which they would be learning through natural language processing. That if you say that switch on my light, then it goes to that particular request would be understood by a process robot, and he would be doing the necessary API calls to actually switching a light. So these kinds of future innovations are also happening. But the most significant amount of benefits that you would have is that today, based on certain statistics, almost 80 million jobs in the United States, 15 million in UK, and hundreds of millions of jobs in India, which are mostly support oriented, can be automated using RPA. And while it's a risk that these people may become redundant, but it's also an opportunity for them to actually do much more intelligent jobs than the kind of jobs that we are used to doing, low profile and jobs that we're used to doing today. So now the thing is that what are the key benefits of doing this kinds of robotic process automation? One is you have operational efficiency, because the amount of defects that you may encounter becomes lesser, because all of these steps are now no more human intervention is required. And also they may be on time, because unlike in case of a support structure where you have to let's say if you have a 24/7 workshop, you don't want to employ support staff for all the three shifts. You just can run one robot which can run 24/7 and can support you. Also scalability, as I said, that you can spawn, depending on the demand, multiple robots where you can for the specific process that needs to be run, you can push them to spawn new robots and then run them. So that is one feature. Cost savings. Now, if you are using lesser number of resources and you're automating with RPS, then you have much more cost savings. And then enhanced accuracy, because we have defined certain set of rules, and those rules have to be followed by a program. And we know that programs are much more accurate when they are executed than human beings, and they are much more consistent. Now, what RPAs can do? The RPA can do specifically if you have certain kind of data entry jobs where you need to fill certain forms or fill certain excels which are to be fetched from some other system and to be filled, or let's say you want to get the different systems information from different systems and fill that into one system. Those kind of activities can be done using RPS. Application migration. So if you have certain set of steps that where you are migrating one data from to another system, there are a lot of scenarios where a migration of data would be required. For example, you have one system which is older version, and you have another system which is newer version. So you would be taking parts of those information and creating a new ticket or a new record in the new system. That step can be cumbersome if you're doing manually. So one of the best ways of doing it is also using RPA. Then rule-based decision making. So let's say you have certain set of steps which are cross application, and you want to for example, you have to open a mail, you have to download a report, you have to verify the report is fine or not, and if it is done, then you have to say upload let's say report to SharePoint, and then you have to fill up a form that it's being verified. If you have this kind of a complex rule-based setup and the verifications are very clear that what are the key steps you need to verify. Let's say you just need to verify the format, or you just need to verify headers are the header information is correct or not. If these kinds of verifications you are supposed to do, which are highly structured, you can and these are rule-based. And let's say if it is correct, you need to do this. If it's failure, you need to do this. So if these kinds of, or you are doing a monitoring, let's say, where if particular job fails, then you need to actually send a mail to someone. These kind of tasks can be automated using an RPA tool. And then but in all of these, the key thing is that these steps have to be well defined. So ideally whenever you are starting with any kind of a RPA automation initiative, you always have to put down your steps, what you are doing, into a coded into a clear cut document that becomes your run book. And if you're following a structured run book, you can then start mapping it to how a program a robot into a robotic process, how it would run. And that you can define using any of these designers that RPA tools provide. Okay, so what are the key benefits? First is that you have efficiency and compliance. So a lot of times what happens is that you are mandated that you need to respond to something in a given time, given SLA. But let's say a lot of times what happens if there is human intervention is involved and some kind of human issue happens, the process may become inefficient. I have faced in my real life where I had to do I had to request somebody to do certain steps, and these are steps that need to be done on time. The person went for lunch or he's unwell, then my process is stuck. But in case of a robot, that particular steps can be automated, and also they would meet these SLAs. Then management capabilities, because these processes are actually in case of most and all of these robotic process automations, they are managed services. That is, some you have some kind of a dashboard or you have some kind of a control center from where you can monitor all these robots. It is unlike your humans whom you can, if they are only office or they are working remotely, you may not have the detailed view of what they are doing. In case of robots, each and every step they do, there would be some degree of logging. So depending on how much granularity you are logging, you can see what and steps these robots are doing. So that, and also you are able to scale up, scale down, and change the architecture dynamically as and when you require. Also customer experience, because some of these particular RPAs also have a way of interacting with have a chatbot interaction, or have interaction of a structured mail that you can need to send each time to a client. So there would be lesser copy paste, lesser human interaction. They would be more standardized. So if you see a lot of these responses that you get from automated emails, they are pretty much automated, and there somewhere a robot would be used. So the same kind of things can be done with a RPA. And degree of flexibility. Now the thing is that unlike other automations like scripts, or you are doing a DevOps, or you are doing some kind of program that you are developing yourself, each time the change you want to do, you have to actually implement the same change across multiple servers. Or if you are doing this change, let's say change the process, you need to compile it, and then you need to deploy it in all the different servers where you are doing this automation. Or if it is but in case of a robotic process automation, you just change the steps, the process steps that you have defined in a designer, test it out, and then you can push it directly using their command center, which a RPA system provides. And also scalability. So the fundamental architecture of RPA is that you have certain set of robots. These robots are basically agents that are running on specific servers, and these servers are where your automations will run. Then there is a central repository, which is known as command center also, where all your automata or the process automations that you have designed are kept. And then you have designers, where you are process designers or desktop software, where you can define these processes and then test it on your local and then push it to this command centers. These command centers are the one who would decide how many processes you need to spawn, and how many which process should go to where. And also you can design how many processes to be allocated one process, and how should be the workflow. So this is at a high level how the RPA architecture is. Hence it makes it quite agile, because you can push depending on demand, you can scale up, you can also change the steps and publish, and accordingly these particular process robots will update their execution, will run the new processes. Okay, so now I would be talking about the RPA landscape. There are a lot of automation softwares that are available. Some are specific to business process automation, that is BPM, BPA, and there are also some which are pure desktop automation, like Softomotive. Softomotive has something called Win Automation, which is basically a desktop automation tool. But then the most key, the topmost robotic process automation tools are Blue Prism, and you have UiPath and Automation Anywhere. And according to Forrester research, these are the most topmost tools that are being adopted by enterprise. And hence, if you are looking at exploring robotic process automation, you should be well versed in any of these tools. So how you should be actually proceeding with a robotic process automation? First, you should be doing a pilot. So you start with taking installing. First, you can start with a small automation. The best what I learned in my sessions was that the best way to start a robotic process automation is to start with a simple desktop automation. The best tool for that is Win Auto. It has a lot of options. It has also a recorder which will record your steps and can generate a template based process flow for you to then later on change and optimize it. And once it is done, you can run it and see how this automation works. So with WinAuto, you can do Excel automation, you can do web-based automation, UI automation. You can also do like connecting with SSH APIs, or let's say even you can connect with FTP and integrating them into a single workflow. And usually for an annual license, it is only 900 USD. So that's quite cheap for other robotic process automations that I'll be talking about. So this is one way to do it. Then also the similar kind of approach can be done with UiPath also. UiPath actually is particular for if you're doing for personal use. If you want to learn, you can download it for free. Its UI designer is free, but its server, that is the RPA server, which actually does the whole work of control room, control spawning of new robots, or working on the management of various robots, that particular would cost you license. But for enterprise, UiPath has multiple components, and they have different license costs. So the first thing is that you have to first look at your mapping of your manual processes. You have to put it down into a runbook. Then you have to find out the ways how you can automate this runbook, how to automate, which parts to automate using RPA tool, and for which you would be needing certain scripts. So if you have already certain scripts, it's not necessary that you have to re-engineer it into the RPA tool. You can actually call these scripts from an RPA tool. You have to understand that RPA tools are basically best suited for as an integration methodology. So if as a human being, we develop certain scripts, but what happens is that we sometimes run these scripts manually and then execute it. Instead of doing that way, you can actually design this already whatever you have developed. You can also integrate it into as a set of steps under RP, and then you can publish it. Okay, just I'll take a break and I will see if you guys can still out there. Please ping me. Yeah, so thanks for asking the question. So one simple example I can say is like you want to send a mailer. You want to send a mailer to 100 or 300 people. Not bad. Hyro is a new kid in town, but even if you look at AI capabilities, UiPath has AI capabilities. You can actually integrate it with Watson services and also Amazon Echo to integrate it. But the market leaders are currently Blue Prism and UiPath and probably Automation Anywhere. This is a general session, so. And Vijayan, as I said, UiPath has a free version. You can download it and play with it, but it is for personal use only. So that is the best way. And I would say, as far as documentation is concerned, UiPath has one of the best documentation and videos available that you can refer to learn UiPath as a automation as a RPA tool. And then finally, what you can do is that they have a certification which you can also apply, which is again free. So from all-round perspective, I would say currently one of the best tools that you want to learn is UiPath. But having said that, Blue Prism, there are a lot of enterprise and open trainings that are available that you can also do for Blue Prism. But if you look at enterprise level, because of the license cost, Automation Anywhere is also one of the preferred tools for RPA. But the problem with the Automation Anywhere is this, it's a bit dated technology. So I'll go back to the presentation. I'll try to finish off, and then I'll take up all the questions that you may have asked in the in the group chat. So let me go to, yeah. So how is the stages of automation journey? So first of all, once the pilot is done, the key things that you need to do to assess out of a pilot is that it is really beneficial, because to be honest, RPAs are not for individual people. RPAs are most suited if you are working in an enterprise environment, and each of these RPA tools would have inbuilt costing at different levels. So if you are using a designer, there will be a price for that designer. So that there would be costs associated for running those designers, running the designer tool. Then if you are hosting a server for RPA tools, so that particular have cost, and just designing and running those processes doesn't happen. You would be actually creating an executable called process robots that you would be installing on remote servers. Those robots per process would have a license cost. That is how most of these UiPath or Blue Prism charges. Blue Prism, the thing is that it has a different pricing model. So it is much more, if you see at a much more scalar enterprise level, it may end up be costing you cheap if you have hundreds of processes to be run. But if you're looking at to do small and then scale up gradually, then your best bets may be WinAuto or probably something like UiPath. Okay. So then another thing is that you have to also check effectiveness of the RPA technology over your existing system. So you may have developed certain scripts or that can do the automation process, but then you have to see what are the benefits you are getting from an RPA tool. So RPA tool would be more beneficial if you are looking at reusable components. So the good thing about RPAs is that many of the process and flows that you define, they can also be converted into reusable components and can be used in different processes that you have across the organization. So for example, you are downloading a file from a FTP path. This process can be automated, and wherever and this particular automata can be integrated into other places wherever they need to download a FTP file. So and many such kind of reusable components can be created and can be used, which is not possible generally with code-based automation or script-based automation. Then also you need to showcase that what is the technical capabilities that you are achieving. That is, do you have developers to actually work on it? So let's say if it only solves your 10% of your technological tasks, but 90% still you have to do manually, it makes no sense. And also you have to see that the speed, risk, and ease of implementation, because RPA makes sense because these are very dynamic and easy to implement and quick to implement, quick to if you are looking at something that you want to quickly implement and automate and want to be running within 15 days or 10 days, then RPA makes sense. Because general scripts and testing and this, that would all anyway happen in like a 1 month, or if you give a sufficient amount of time, you can test and implement it. So that also you need to take into consideration. Then you have other aspects like your ROI, return on investment, because since you have so much of license cost that you have to put in an enterprise setup, you need to make sure that is RPA is for you. If you are a small startup and you cannot you are developing these kinds of processes and you want to run it, but hiring so you have this license cost that you have to pay annually, and then also for robots you have to pay, and then you have in addition to that whatever necessary setups are, because upfront costs are high in the RPA setup. The upfront costs are high and also annual costs are high. That's why you need to make sure that what you are getting into an RPA tool is actually making sense to you at a larger scale. And then you should be deciding if you are ready to go for a RPA journey. And the best way is that you start with small use cases, then you scale it, and then you build a cohesive team where you look at for where high what you call high volume transactions, highly structured transactions, and high volume transactions which can be automated and which has high amount of risk if you are doing it with human intervention. That kind of process, if you are automating with RPA, makes more sense, and which needs a continuous. Now there are two types of automations that you can do. One is supervised automation, that is from you can supervise like from a using where certain steps would be done, and then you want to click at one step to verify that the previous steps have been done, and then you want to do the next steps. Like for example, let's say you have a process where you are you are opening an application, you are filling a form, and then before submitting a user need to be questioned if this should happen or not. So these kinds of steps when you are doing, or if you are deleting certain records, you want to do it, you are doing it periodically. So if you want some kind of human intervention to see if this is to be done or not, or if you have any logs to be verified after the things step has been done, that is supervised monitoring or supervised automation. But the other aspect of unsupervised automation is, for example, you are monitoring a job, and whenever it fails you just need to send a mail. This is an unsupervised job, unsupervised automation, where you don't need any human intervention. It will automatically send a mail, and it would go on to the next cycle. These are the key things that you need to do. But the most important thing is that when you are building automations, you should look at reusability, you should look at hierarchical organization and how the process can be organized using RPA tools, and then you should be looking at how to standardize this whole automation process across the organization. Okay. If you see, as I already told, the leaders in UI automation are UiPath, Prism, and Automation Anywhere. I will just quickly go to some of the key aspects about UiPath. Based on my experience, UiPath has one of the most powerful feature where you actually have recorders for not only process but also UI automation, and also since it is Windows .NET based, so you can use .NET based notation, specifically VB.NET, to actually code certain parts of the the process that you are defining in UiPath. And basically, there are three steps. One is UiPath Studio. This is the one that basically where you design your processes and flows, and then you have UI robots. These are the agents that run at specific servers, and once you have defined a process, you push it to these robots to be executed. The next thing is UiPath Orchestrator. This is basically the control room that I was talking about, where you actually defined how many robots need to be defined, to which robot, which process, which of these automatas that you have defined, or the kind of process automation that you have defined in UI Studio need to be pushed, because you can define multiple for multiple processes, multiple multiple steps, and each of them would have different names. It's like writing a program. You can write different programs with different names. So which system should run and whom to be sent, and how many of these particular systems need to be run would be defined by UiPath. The best thing that the leaders in Citrix based automation has been UiPath. So they have very good connectors with for Citrix UI automation. They also have very good connectors with to be used with cognitive tools like your Watson, and also they have feature for adding new connectors using C# or VB script. So you can define new connectors, and you can actually publish it into their marketplace, and from there others can buy or use it. So that kind of because of those kind of features, it is also one of the leading tools in market. So another is that Blue Prism. So I will tell you that one of the most first process automation tools that coined the word robotic process automation was Blue Prism. So Blue Prism is actually a much more different design philosophy than UiPath or WinAuto. Their philosophy is pretty simple. They don't provide macros. They have a concept of object-oriented processes. That is, for each of the process that you are designing to be automated, you go and check all these processes. You properly analyze. You define them into certain set of defined steps, and then you design the flow properly, and then you define reusable components, and then you build a particular sequence, and that sequence is what would then be can be published to various robots and can be run. So the three main components of UiPath are the UiPath is the object studio. Then you also have a control room from where you can actually all these robots that are there for UiPath, you can spawn up, and also you can control which particular which particular robot runs which processes. There is a very powerful feature in Blue Prism. There is known as queues. Work queues are one of the most powerful feature, because you can define prioritization of what kinds of jobs this particular robots can run, and which robots can run should listen to which particular of these processes. So all of these you can define. Another great feature of UiPath is that for calling these robots, right, or these processes from within a robots, you can actually use API endpoints. These API endpoints are basically SOAP based. That is, you can actually connect them through web interface, and then using WSDL definitions, you can integrate with your own application to give request to them. So what happens is that, yes, they do not have any natural integration with any of the what you call ready-made connectors with let's say Watson or something like Facebook Messenger or Slack. But because of this these WS SOAP based API call feature, what you can do is you can effectively design certain intermediary bots, chatbots, or you can define other applications. From there, you can also actually integrate the execution of these robots. And another great feature is that with Blue Prism is that you can also the one problem is that Blue Prism runs on SQL Server. You cannot, if you want to aggregate the logs in Blue Prism, you have to actually define certain external programs that will listen to these logs from the database, and then you can use something like your Solar or Splunk to monitor them. But in case of UiPath, they have an integrated connector that can be also connected with Splunk, so that all your processing that is being done, all the logging that is being done by robots can also be aggregated at a central dashboard for viewing them. Then finally, I would come at Automation Anywhere. Automation Anywhere is one of the most oldest tools that is available in market right now. So they have similar to Blue Prism, they have features to work with. They have a client, they have bots, and then they have control room. So this control room is where you actually monitor and then spawn all the robots, and then do the management of pushing out the that process definitions that you have defined to these robots. And clients are basically who clients we call as robots are the one that would run these particular clients are the one that you can connect to these particular control rooms and view what is happening and probably do process definition. Bots are the one that would run the specific processes. The thing with Automation Anywhere is one of the most oldest RPA tools, and it's best suited for robotic desktop automation. And the good thing about Automation Anywhere is that for it has a recorder tool for web recorder as well as UI recorder. So that makes it as one of the most attractive tools along with UiPath. The only difference between, I would say, if you are looking at Automation Anywhere, it's a little bit dated technology. And also another aspect, if you compare with UiPath, is that UiPath has license fees for each of its components, which can be sometimes, if you add up, quite be expensive. But case of Automation Anywhere, if you're an enterprise, you may end up getting very good discounts. So it has one of the most discounted, I mean, one of the most cheapest RPA tools in the market. It is actually based out of India. Okay, finally is Win Automation. So Win Automation was one of the first tools that I learned how to do robotic automation. So Softomotive has two parts of it. They have separate tools. So they also have an RPA tool like that control room feature, and then spawning multiple robots. So all that kind of feature is something called process automation. And when automation is there, RDA tool, that is desktop automation tool. So this particular tool has a very simple interface. It has a lot of connectors. It also has a web recorder as well as a UI desktop recorder, and it is best suited for designing processes that are you would say supervised automations. So they are basically set of sequences that you define. And the good thing is that you can also integrate VB-script based code snippets into this tool. Again, when you are exporting the processes and want to run in robots, for each process on a robot, there would be a license cost. But the license cost of overall designer is very cheap. It comes around somewhere in 900 USD. So by default, with a WinAuto designer, you also have a inbuilt robot. So that whole license comes 900 USD. So you can at least run one of these and test it out how it works overall. Now, the key checklist when you are actually deciding on a RPA tool, first is the technology, because what happens is that if your servers are running on Windows, your shop is a Mac and Unix heavy shop, then RPAs may not make sense, because many of the leading RPA tools runs on Windows system. The intrinsic reason why they run on Windows systems, because most of them started with as a robotic desktop automation tool, and that's why many of them, the internal design when they started out, they reused one of the some of the libraries that they are doing for robotic automation are Windows specific. That's why you would see that many of these tools are not ported to Linux. But then some of the unsupervised automation tools that are available can run both on Linux and also on Mac. So so that is very important, that when you are designing any automation tools, or you are looking to design or you are testing what to use, you should be very careful of what technology it can support. Apart from that, another aspect is that if you are running on virtual machines or using Citrix or VMware, if you are using some kind of a virtual desktop environment from where you want to connect, and then if you actually are working this particular where these particular robots would be hosted, are they going to be hosted on a public cloud or a hybrid cloud, and then how they should be interacting with with the client systems or client applications. All of this matters. And actually the upfront cost is not only about licenses, but sometimes actually this whole setup that you are doing where these robots would run may also pose significant challenges. Hence, all of these things need to be considered before proposing any kind of automation solution to your clients. Then comes the interface. You should be most of the these designers. I found that Blue Prism was the most complicated UI design as far as designing of processes were concerned. The most easiest I found was Win Automation, and somewhere in between was UiPath. So the same case would be like, what suits you? I mean, you want ease of UI, or you want a better control over your process that you want to design. So that things would also matter when you want to make a larger adoption for developers who would be your RPA designers. So that and also as far as the feature wise, like what features you need. Do you need only one robot to be running on a single desktop? You then Bin automation is the best automation tool for you. But if you are needing some kind of a automation tool that would be spawning thousands of servers, and actually should be should have something like kind of a work queue feature, where depending on the priority of it, and you should be spawning more robots, or actually giving priority to certain specific set of family of robots. So those kind of planning you want to do, then probably you have to look at something like Blue Prism. And then comes the management. So that comes the management part of it. So how you want to manage it, how at what architecture level you want to manage it. So all of this matters. So that also needs to be taken into care while deciding on a RPA tool. Finally is the security. The thing is that we when we are learning RPA tools, we forget that RPA tools end of the day are not as assistant that would be working on the same system where your normal user would be working. An RPA tool would be running on a dedicated system, because when you are doing when the RPA tool is doing certain automation, you can't expect yourself to be also getting into it and doing some work. It cannot work in parallel, because the nature in which the desktop automation works, it needs the control over your mouse pointer, your keystrokes, and the and also the movement of these. So you cannot run this generally in case of a at least the supervised or desktop automation, wherever desktop automation is involved in RPA tool. So that's why that also is a key area you need to decide. So another aspect is that also you cannot just give your user ID, your user, who is the operational user, his user ID to access all the systems. You should always define new user IDs to be used for the RPA tools. Again, RPA tools, you should not be saving your username password for whatever user ID it is being used for different applications in a plain text file. You have to save it in kind of a secured password store. See, these password stores cannot be on the local machine. They should be centralized password stores. So there are many enterprise password stores that are available. So depending on what password store you're gonna use, you need to see that compatibility of that with the specific RPA tool that you're using. So all of these things need to be taken into consideration when you are using. So other things can be like tool license and maintenance cost. As I said that WinAuto is just a single license for the server and a client. But if you're looking at something like WinAuto or UiPath, it has separate license for others. And then you have Blue Prism. Blue Prism has one single license, annual license of 20,000 USD. It's damn expensive, but with that you get an opportunity to host as many robots as you want. So that is its own advantages. And then vendor support. So you don't want to again, if somebody depending on the applications that you are using, you don't have the expertise of defining those process automata or automation of these processes. You would want somebody to be able to do those automations for your system. So let's say you want to do mainframe automation. So does this particular RPA tool does support mainframe automation or not? So mainframe automation tools are mainframe automation is being supported by Blue Prism, but it will not be supported by Win automation. So you have to make the, based on these requirements, you have to do the appropriate choice. So finally, I would say thank you for listening to me patiently. If you have any questions, you can ask me now. You can unmute and ask me. And then probably, okay, you're using all. Okay, UiPath, that's a very good question. So, what are the different integrations that UiPath provides? You have one option where you can define and actually run UiPath look. With a single robot, you can run it at like Win automation on a single system. You also have their orchestrator. Orchestrator would cost you quite a bit. So with the orchestrator, you can actually define different other topologies where you can you can spawn up multiple robots, or you can define certain set of robots to be connected with, and then each of those systems on which these robots are present, you can install the robots and then connect it with your orchestrator, and then depending on your processes, you can define which process should go to which of these robots. So the concept will look like this. You have I think you are well aware about how RPAs operate. So you have this. So I would call the automations as automata. Automata is like a program that you define as set of steps, and that you basically save it, and or you push it into the central repository. Yeah, tell me, somebody unmuted.
Hi, Priya. Thanks for the session. My question is, can you hear me? First
Yes,
of
I
all,
can hear you.
okay. See, I'm thinking different. The reason why I joined was like since it's like a new field to me, and I'm trying to connect my RPA tool to Ansible. Okay, because Ansible can be used as a scripting
So Ansible,
feature
I'll be
also.
honest with you, Ansible is itself is a,
Mhm.
how would I say, it is a CI tool, continuous, no, it's not a continuous integration tool, but it is a DevOps tool for, it is used in the
Right, right,
and for code integration. So
correct.
what you are trying to achieve? So what is your RPA tool that you're using?
So what I'm doing currently is we already have Hero on a 6 month basis, and we are still evaluating. It's more of a pilot. So, and also I want to evaluate UiPath wherein see all we are trying to like say we have a lot of end machines,
Yeah. So
servers or
just
Windows machines or any of the Unix, Mac, anything. So
all right. So how do
basically,
you run it? I will explain. Now, tell me first thing, Ansible. How do you call them currently? These
so
Ansible
through
how,
the hello, through the control towers, basically it's more of like a trial. I have written some playbooks
right?
which will connect to the endpoints and basically resolve the issue. So
So
if my hard disk is full, it should basically go either based on the end device. It should move the files or delete the files or compress and keep it somewhere.
cool. So now let me get back step. So is it a Ansible has a UI, or it has some kind of some other way of reporting you back that this
Yeah,
particular.
it has a UI as well as it has command returns also. I mean,
So
yeah, the way I'm using Ansible is different. It's not meant for this purpose, but it kind of explode okay as well as I
So
have
the
an
approach that I would advise, or what others tend to use, is that you can you can do a web automation to go through their UI, and then you can define what are the key parameters to be done. So where you can use a RPA tool, I'll tell you. Now let's say you need to send an email. Now I know Ansible can actually send an email, but you
right.
uh, uh, I would say that let's say you want to you yourself want to have a pop-up whenever these thing kinds of happens, or you want to have a notifier, some kind of a
Mm.
notifier need to be given. And this RPA tools are basically tools that are done in a best suitable for desktop automation or
Mm.
automation of multiple systems. That they are the approach can be that either you use something like SSH, connect with that through the command line, run, extract the text, and then you can send a mail using RPA tool. Or the approach
Okay.
can be that you go to that UI, take whatever key items, and then you can give a desktop pop-up, or you can also send using something like a email using RPA tool. But the thing is that you have to see. That's why I said you need to do the technology analysis or cost benefit analysis. That if things can be done in Ansible, which
I'll tell you, my use case is not a UI based or anything. My use case is a bit different. For UI based, I'm using Windows, I mean Intel Mesh.
no, you
Uh,
always you need not do UI based. So UiPath has feature for running unsupervised what you call processes as well. So what is your use case?
my use case is if I get an alert. I mean, there are monitoring tools like Smarts and other things which tell me like hard disk is full, memory is getting full, or my performance of server is going high.
Right.
Based on that event, I'm trying to issue a remediation for that. So obviously, when my performance is high, I know that okay, there is some process which is spawning too many hours. This is more of on the ITSM side, by the way. It's got nothing to do with
The
the
alert
machine.
comes from where? How you access these alerts?
From Smarts, that's one tool which is known for monitoring
It's a
on the
desktop.
IT.
It's a desktop tool, or it's a web-based tool.
No, 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 no. It actually provides the alerts as in the form of events. Events in the sense like it sends a XML event every now and then through a queue process.
Agreed. I mean, see, I will tell you the truth is that how you consume this particular events, if it is saved in specific path,
For
you
me, for me, consumption is also fine. I can consume and I can store it also, and I can do it like live stream. Even if it is a live stream data, I can read it. My question here is, can I hook up UiPath to Ansible to execute any backend commands?
so I am
Because
not
right now I
uh,
certain
ready-made
things,
if the
but
connector is there or not, but definitely you can. So how usually how Ansible playbooks are triggered? There must be some way of triggering it, right?
right, it's a basic shell command.
I'm sorry.
It's basic Unix based commands. We can trigger it like through the
Good.
control. I mean,
So if it's a Unix-based command, you can always go. You have SSH connectors, so you connect with
mhm,
SSH and just trigger this command. That is how you can do. Another approach is you can use putty or some kind of a tool that would open and then trigger this command. That's are the ways in which you use RPS basically. Uh,
okay.
Okay, or if you have a ready-made connector, you can also use that
Mhm,
kind of a tool. But UiPath is best suited for these kind of approaches.
okay. And is does UiPath have any connectors to any of the machine learning
I
platforms?
am not sure. Machine learning, yes, I remember Watson was there. It also had something connecting with Amazon Echo that
Alex,
sorry, Alexa. So that feature is also there. They have done it.
I want to. I mean, I'm asking more of a generic like scikit-learn or
I'm
TensorFlow.
sorry.
Keras. No, I'm asking on a generic terms like say like can UiPath connect to a TensorFlow package or
See,
can
I'll
I?
be honest with you. TensorFlow, you have to understand, is a Python library.
Right, right. That's what
TensorFlow,
I'm asking.
so the way you have to, so depending on your requirement, you need to figure a way. So Python libraries can be also called, but the thing is that usually TensorFlow runs on your Unix
GPU.
rather than Windows. they are better performant on Unix based system or Linux based systems. So again, you run this on a Linux based system and then just give a call. But inbuilt TensorFlow connector won't be there. Again, you have to understand what kinds of cognitive systems we are talking about as connectors. Basically, we are talking about APIs. APIs,
Correct.
for example, which are already available by companies. Something like IBM Watson, or we are talking about Amazon Alexa or Google's Assistant, Google's Voice, or its various cognitive APIs. These are the for Azure's Microsoft Azure APIs. These are the kind of APIs we are talking about cognitive. Cognitive doesn't comes with TensorFlow, deep learning library, or NLTK, not like that. Those can still be what you need to do is you need to write scripts for it, and you can call those scripts from your RPA tool. That's the simplest approach.
Okay.
That can be done with any kind of RPA tool.
Mhm. Because I have not used UiPath, but I could connect to from Hero to Ansible and all do some experiments. So I just wanted to understand if UiPath has that feature or not. Anyway, thanks for your response.
Okay. So I think I'm done with my session. If anybody else has any, so what I'll do is I will also in the same meetup I will the recording I will be sharing so that you can refer to it later on. Anybody else has any points? Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for your time and apologies for that initial mix-up. I think I will be in future doing more sessions using Hangout or probably WebEx. It was a letdown. Webroom was just I just tried out. It was one of the first sessions, so we'll be doing more such sessions. We'll be talking about DevOps. We'll be talking about quantum computing and more such sessions. And probably we may also be doing more sessions on automation using Ansible, Chef, uh, and other things that are available around. Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye bye.